This week's episode of Different Roots Radio, we're joined by a restaurateur who opened up multiple restaurants that specializes in authentic Indian food. We're able to talk a little bit more about how she used her training from working at a VC fund and also her marathon training into her business life. And of course, we'll talk about UK's greatest foods and what it is that we're going to be, a lot of Brits are ordering on and off of Deliveroo. So check out our descriptions below for our discount code. So if next time you feel in the mood for Indian food, you'll be able to use our discount code Different Roots Radio. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. Leave us a comment down below on what it is you ordered and or what's you're in the mood for. And if you're listening to us via podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to seeing you in the comment section. DJ, play me my song.
By the founder and CEO of Chit, Tania Rahman. She is also won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2018, and Chit won the Best Restaurant Delivery in London in 2020, which is pretty cool, especially since we're all in pandemic. And she's also been nominated for the Barclaycard Awards for the Female Entrepreneur of the Year. And if that's not enough, she spoke in the House of Commons for empowering minority leaders. And finally, I could do this all day, she is doing the MBA at Manchester University, where Dami and I attended, and she is the head of the Economic Social Governance Group. She has a lot more, but we don't have all day, so thank you for joining us today, Tania. It is our pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, anytime.
Is there anything you can't do? That's right.
Well, we'll probably see after this podcast, really. Maybe I'm not really good at podcasting.
We can balance it out.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question is, how do you come about the idea for your business? What was the motivation behind starting a restaurant in Clapham, South London? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it short because, sometimes when you talk about your story to starting up a business, it can kind of go on for a long time. But initially, I was working for a tech company in the States, and my job there was to help tech startups raise money, like Series A and Series B funding, and find developers. So when a company raises money, especially a tech company, that's the main thing that they spend their investment on. And I was speaking with young entrepreneurs every day, people that were my age, and they just had so much infection for wanting to start something from nothing, and their risk appetite was really high, and they didn't know what was going to happen, but they were okay with that. And I think that kind of attitude kind of rubbed off on me, and I was thinking, wow, why can't I do something? I know I want to do something, but I just don't know what. And I took up running, so marathon running, so I did a few marathons. And then in that process...
What can you do?
Well, if you shut that, we will not be doing any marathons anytime soon. Maybe on the basketball court, that's about it.
Even yet, still, it's half court.
But when you're running 46 miles, you have time to think, obviously. So on one of them, I was this is an idea I have for a business. I really want to have my own restaurant. And at the time, no one was doing Indian street food. It was a relatively new concept. And, Indian food in the UK was very dated. It had the curry perception, not particularly healthy. But it wasn't just about the food. It was about a celebration of my identity, and especially being, second generation, British, Asian in this country. There was nothing that was celebrating that. So that's what kind of led me to start Chit.
Nice. I think when it comes to a lot of entrepreneurs trying to figure out, they've got an idea of what they want to do. They don't know where to start, kind of thing. So you identified the market, you identified, London didn't have that. Now, how do you find a location? How do you find the money to even buy a location? These are questions that I know that a lot of people have questions about when they want to start something that requires a physical location. What were your steps to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, especially with food, which is my experience in. So I think even before getting to that stage where you're thinking about a permanent location, bricks and mortar, and pumping in money into it, you have to really scale it back and think about what is my quickest route to getting my product out there, essentially developing an MVP, right? And
minimum viable product.
Exactly, yeah. And in food, I think it's pretty easy to do. You can cook for your family or friends. You can get your product out there and get opinions, feedback really quickly. So that's what I started doing. I spent a couple of £100, so it wasn't, going to end my world if I lost that money, to buy a gazebo, and I went around to like market stores in London, and I just sold my food on the weekend. So Monday to Friday I would work. My corporate job, and on the weekends, like 4 a.m. till 10 p.m, I'll just be on the market store, just hustling and just seeing, like, am I doing the right thing? Is the dishes right? Is the concept right? And just getting that feedback was really invaluable, because it made me realize, actually, do I need to refine this business, tweak it, change it? So when I do go down the investment route and finding a bricks and mortar site, I know that the risks are slightly less.
That's really interesting that you said that you get a lot of feedback, because one of my friends, he actually said, do you want a free dinner? And I, of course, always want a free dinner. So he said, look, my friend's starting a restaurant, he wants you to try the dishes and review them. So I got 3 different meals on 3 different days, and I ate them and I had to give a little review. And it's a really good idea, because I was like, there's too much sauce, there's not enough chicken, so you can give feedback and you get a good idea. But for him, it seems to be really time consuming. So how do you balance like all your time? And now that the business is up and running, do you find that while you're doing your MBA, do you sleep? How many hours a day do you how are you managing it all? Or are you one of those people who just has hyperactive and you just can do a lot?
Well, I definitely don't feel like I'm hyperactive, I can do everything, but I do feel with the MBA and also running, so I had Chit, Chaat, there was another business I started during lockdown. So I'm essentially running 2 businesses and doing a full-time MBA, and you guys have done it, and you know that the MBA is a job in itself, if not 2 jobs combined in one. So it is difficult, but I think managing time and being efficient, like, you need to be able to manage your time effectively, and I get up really early. I'm an early person, so I make sure, like, before 9 a.m, before my first lecture, I've done all my personal stuff related to the business. And then whenever the MBA meetings finish, but sometimes like 9 p.m, and then I have to do the other stuff I need to catch up on, because you juggle all these balls in the air at any given time. I'm not sure if I'm really doing them particularly well, but it's enough at the moment. And also not having too much pressure on myself to know that I have to be the absolute best in everything. I'm okay with just being able to juggle the balls in the air, right? They don't have to go up a certain, be the highest. They just have to stay afloat.
Yeah, there's another analogy with that, with the whole having many jobs in one go. It's plate spinning.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. So you don't know, gotta touch back on this job, make sure that it still functions well, and then you let it go, and hopefully it balances itself out, and then you jump around and figure out your other job. So a lot of side hustles are like that, or trying to manage your time, manage your resources, things like that. So I think going back to the whole, you wake up very early. I know time and time again, it's always been advised that the true hustlers are the ones that wake up early and spend the first 1 or 2 hours really focusing on their vision for the day. And I think so, line up all your birds, or line up all your, what objectives for the day, and then try to achieve them. Now, for you, in those first few hours, what is it how do you prioritize what's it you're going to look at or do for the day?
Yeah, so going back to what you said about the true hustlers wake up early, etc. To be honest, I feel like that's a myth, because I feel you can't paint everybody with the same brush, because everybody's different. Like, there are early birds, there's night owls, and you have to do what is good for you. And I know I am not a night owl, so when it gets 10 p.m, I'm done, so getting up at 5 a.m. is good for me, because that's where I'm the best. But you both might be, night owls. So
I'm a nocturnal one.
Yeah.
I'm like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, I do most of my work. But it's weird, because like you said, my mum, she's a doctor, and she's used to delivering babies at 4 a.m, so she just stays up all night. Whereas my dad every day wakes up at 5 a.m. So I used to come back from clubbing, and I'd knock on the door, and he'd be like, "Good morning," and I'd be like, "Oh crap. And I'm just coming back from the club and he'd be up already working. So I think it's each to their own, like you said. I like working at night. But the funny thing you said about the spinning plates, I was watching an interview with Magic Johnson, famous basketball player for the Lakers, and he says he wakes up at 4:30 every morning, does like 30 minutes himself, meditates, plans his day like you said, and then he does like half an hour running and then in the gym for an hour. So I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they're quite disciplined with their working out as well. So because to do a marathon, you need discipline. To go to the gym every day, you need discipline. You don't want to work, you're tired, but you work out. So I think there's a lot of similarities and parallels. But they said the one spinning plate you can't not spin is health. Because if all the ones you're like your job, your family, you can be late for work, but if you get sick or because you're not looking after your body, you get overweight, you get a heart attack, all the other plates fall. So they always say. So I think that's why exercise is quite good with a lot of entrepreneurs because you get health is wealth, and you're burnt out.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that I can actually speak from experience because I burnt out pretty bad about. Past couple of years it's been really intense, and that's because I wasn't spinning the plate of health. I just, especially when you run your own business, you put everything else just goes to the side, and it's like, no, you've got to make this work. Health can come later, wealth can come later, family, friends, connections can come later.
You've got to cut off your friends to be successful. You see all these things, or if they're not supporting you, cut them off. It's like, just cut off everything, just work, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm like dying.
Balance, it's figuring out a balance, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because we're social beings and we need that social connection in order to kind of thrive. And when you're not thriving, you're just existing. And even if it is for your own business, it's not a good place to be, and that's what also causes the burnout. So yeah, absolutely, like health, physical and mental health is just absolute priority.
Thank you. Do you guys know Fred from First Dates?
Of course, who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
My mate Fred.
Your mate Fred, you and Fred go way back. So he's actually a host for another show called £1 Million Menu. So it's essentially a show about different startups, like look out for investors and say, my restaurant idea is actually going to sell. I know they've done a few shootings here in Manchester. And tell us, do you think that's a proper way of getting exposure, a proper way of getting investments, or is that more of a televised version of getting investments? Is there a more hidden or more direct way of getting investments rather than being on BBC Two and showing your face and saying, we can do it, but then ultimately getting rejected by some vendors?
Sure. So the £1 Million Menu is a really good show because it helps viewers understand what it takes in order to get investment in a restaurant or a food business. However, it is a TV show at the end of the day, and it's very similar to like Dragon's Den. So if you're watching the show and you think, okay, this is the route I need to take in order to get investment from my restaurant, it's not realistic. It's a TV show. What I would say is that if you're ever in a position where you're pitching for investors in the industry, then that is a really great position that you're in. However, that is not likely the case. Usually you're pitching to a lot of time wasters. You've got to wade through it. It's like dating in a way. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find
Alright, princess, I hear you.
find the person that has the checkbook, So but you have to be really, like I said, going back to ensuring that your product is good, you know what you want to achieve in like 5 years' time, what your exit is. But there's good networks out there of angel investors, there's good networks of investors in the hospitality industry. They are unfortunately very male heavy, so and it tends to be a certain look. Very rarely you're going to walk into a room and I'm going to see an Asian woman. In fact, that's not ever going to happen. Well, I hope it will. Maybe one day I will be on the other side of the table. So that can be very difficult, and I think that's the challenges anyway of being a founder from like a Bain background anyway. When you are pitching to investors, like serial investors, trying to get VC investment, and you really want to take your business to that next level, that's the biggest hurdle that you face as an entrepreneur.
Sure. You know what, there's, because you guys even brought up Dragon's Den, I know there's one success story about some guys that actually started up their own brewery from the tale of going to Dragon's Den, getting rejected by Dragon's Den, saying, you know what, we can still do it on our own. And guess who these guys are now? Brewed up,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And to be fair, I definitely sink those IPAs. I do like those brewed up IPAs.
Yeah.
So you're a passionate investor,
Yeah.
consumer
Yeah.
side.
I should be a shareholder.
Yeah.
So going into the delivery model now that you said you've started up,
Yeah.
I know that's, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, that's now a thing that's part of business now in restaurant or part of COVID living now, right?
Mhm.
So I know that for some deliveries platforms, they charge like 20 to 25% of the fee that you take, they take it into their cost for allowing you to operate on that platform. Do you know if there's going to be a way around that kind of thing, or what is it you're hoping to do with your own delivery system?
Yeah, so firstly I'd say if there's any of them that are offering 25%, I will be signing up because that is cheap, because that's not the case.
Oh,
In fact, the average commission is you're looking at 35-37%,
jeez.
which is a
Ridiculous.
third of your cost. And on top of that, you have your VAT as well, which businesses have to pay. And what ends up happening, I mean, these delivery models are good, especially during lockdown. It's a lifeline for a lot of operators. However, you do end up working for them, and it's volume based essentially. So if you're making 1,000 orders a week, it makes sense. But if you're doing just a handful, you're making a loss. As soon as you open. But I would say if anybody that wants to go down that delivery and Uber Eats model, I would encourage it, especially if you're new, definitely, because it gets your brand out there, gets your product out there. But there are other ways to do it as well. So a lot of these bricks and mortar sites that you see, like cafes that are open during the day but they're closed in the evening, well, it's worth reaching out to them and saying, look, like, you're still paying rent on that site 24/7, whether you're open or not. I will come in and I will pay you rent, and I'll take the space in the evening and be able to do some deliveries or something. You avoid the cost of having to spend like 35% through the Deliveroo platforms, and you can do your own deliveries and you're paying a much smaller rent as well. So those are other ways I would encourage people to look. Just don't think you need to go down the traditional, or this is how you start a normal restaurant and this is what I need to do, because times have changed. We have so much opportunity. People are much more willing to change their direction and be open to things.
So Deliveroo has actually increased the restaurant industry by $350 million pounds by having that added caveat. So I guess that is a business model to really consider, and it does help. There are pros and cons to incorporating that, and you coined it exactly right. It's by volume that it really would help be able to cover your costs and allow you to expand your network and your audience. By instead of people coming in to your brick and mortar location, you can get people out in Shoreditch or in backward alley, Scotland, and still enjoy your wonderful cuisine.
Exactly, and I think the pandemic has just exacerbated that growth in that sector a lot more. I mean, it was already growing anyway. Everybody's knew delivery was the way forward, but now it's just literally exploded and it's not going anywhere. So we, as operators, you have to evolve. If you don't evolve, you die, unfortunately.
So true.
You seem quite agile and quite resilient, and you can take on a lot of things. What's been after speaking in the House of Commons and starting a company and going to talk to all these businesses in East London and saying we are, and then not listening to you? What's been what are you scared of? What's your greatest fear? And do you have a fear? and if so, how do you get around it? So it's obviously not public speaking, if you can do the House of Commons, but what actually is something that you worry about?
Well, that's an excellent question. I think, going back to what you said about public speaking, I was really bricking it at the House of Commons. I was like, what am I doing here? That was the height of my imposter syndrome. I was like, I should not be here. I only own a restaurant. What am I doing? Why am I speaking for the world? This is not why have they chosen me? So I think in terms of all of this that I've experienced, even the adversity, one of the things is setting boundaries, which I never used to do at the beginning, and now boundaries is a really important part in terms of how I move forward with my business or anything else I want to move forward with generally in life. And I think that's really given me confidence, because in the past it was very much no, I'm not going to set the boundaries because I have to follow what other people are doing because they have the answers and they are a successful ones, so whatever they say goes. and then I'd feel, I feel a little bit like, oh, my gut is telling me this isn't right. And I started to listen to that, because I realised if I don't live a life that's aligned with my values, then ultimately I'm going to get to that burnout stage. I'm going to end up hating everything and just, existing rather than living. So I guess my biggest fear is getting to that stage again, because I've already experienced it and I don't want to, and now I have the knowledge of preventing it, I don't want to get there again. So
Awesome. Fantastic. You know what time it is?
Show time.
For this game show today, we are sticking on the topic of food.
Okay.
So,
I like where your head's at. I am kind of hungry after all.
I'm starving. I won't think one, and the pictures on the website made me even more hungry. So we will start with
food porn.
in Britain. What is the favourite? What are the top 4 takeaways that people like to order? You should probably know this.
Alright, so who's answering? You are?
Both of them.
Okay, both are.
Okay. I'll contribute to the joint effort of an answer. Did you say
Top 4 food types.
Food types?
To order for takeaway, yeah.
Chicken,
No, like
cuisine.
Cuisine,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Food. Okay, let's go with Italian, because that covers pizza, right?
Okay.
So, and I would also say, I will say Indian food, because they bring the spice.
Okay.
And I love
That's
all
1 and
spice.
2.
Yeah, that's 1 and 2.
Italian and Indian.
Okay, so Chinese
As 1.
as one, and the second one would be Chinese, Thai.
Thai. So British foods are not
In England, most
Okay,
ordered
we
food.
forget that then. Chinese.
Because I was thinking like,
Chinese,
roast
Indian,
and yeah.
not delivery.
Delivery,
Roast.
takeaway.
Yeah.
I feel like pizza tonight, I feel like Indian tonight, I feel like Chinese tonight.
Yeah.
Exactly, for sure. But now I can't think of the third one.
So what's your first one? Chinese.
Yeah.
Second one.
Thai.
Oh yeah, Chinese Thai.
So I think another one would potentially be, Lebanese.
Oh, I do like
Like
that.
hummus.
But
and
delivered
chicken.
though.
Delivery.
Delivered
Yeah.
though, that's the thing. Like,
I will put you out of
Where
the
would I
misery.
get hummus from if
You've
it's
done
not
well.
from Mediterranean? And
You've done fairly well. You both get 1 point.
okay.
both get
What
1
did you
point.
say? You
I said Italian and Indian.
Indian.
So in 2017 and in 2020, the #1 ordered food in the UK is Chinese food.
Yeah.
Chinese.
So you got 1 point for that.
That one.
And the second is Indian, which you got right.
Yeah.
You should have got right since you haven't
Yeah,
even
No,
but
but I claimed it. I
You
claimed
claimed
it.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I'm
then-
not gonna let her win today.
Third is Italian, is pizza.
Right.
So you get a little half a point. That was third. You put it first.
Yeah.
So Dami's winning, and then fourth is fish and chips.
Fish and chips delivered.
It's England. It's
Is
England.
that considered cuisine?
But it's
so I
only-
said British.
It's only 7% that ordered.
But
So
delivered though.
yeah, 35% in Chinese, 24% Indian, 13% pizza, and then 7% fish and chips.
Wow.
And then Lebanese and all the other ones.
At the
tied
bottom,
down
yeah.
to the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Don't let them know that.
Yeah.
All right. How many times do you think the average UK person goes out and gets food? And on top of that, that's a part A, and part B, which age demographic do you think is the most that goes out and gets the
To
food?
the restaurant or just goes out to the supermarket?
Goes out to go get food.
Go get food. So that encompasses supermarket, eating out,
Yeah.
takeaway.
Let's do eating out, not like going to grocery store or anything
Okay.
like that.
Okay, easy.
So eating out.
Yeah,
Okay.
eating
I
out,
would
or
say
doing takeaway.
how many times a week?
How many times a week?
3 times.
3 times. And what age demographic?
So I would say 18 to 39.
18 to 39.
Just
So,
quite big.
Specific age.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone.
So Gen X, Gen Y, Millennial,
So
and
Gen Z, millennials, and then which one's the one above us?
the one above us. Wasn't that Gen X?
We do this every time. Boomers.
Baby boomers are grandparents.
grandparents, and then you've
Baby
got.
stars is Gen X. But okay, our
Let's
turn.
just go with ours and Gen Z, I'd say.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So how many times a week, sorry?
3.
3. Alright, go ahead.
I'm gonna put. 3's a lot. I'll go to 2.
Okay, 2. And what
I'll go
demographic?
for millennials and Gen Z.
Gen Z. All right. So the answer is twice a week. That in
Okay,
person.
got it.
So, but the one that does go out the most is millennials. So they go out.
I need that from you. Appreciate you.
So they go out like 4 times a week, and because of social media, if it doesn't exist, if I don't snap it, did it really happen? Kind of thing. So it's those trendsetters and things like that. Those are the millennials.
Yeah, sad though, isn't it?
Yeah.
With my Starbucks coffee, my Frappuccino,
Exactly.
I'm at this restaurant. There you go.
Yeah.
Last question. Getting deep now. Serious issues. Beginning of 2020, guys. What were the biggest problems facing the world?
I couldn't travel.
I mean, social issues. General global
I still
problems.
couldn't travel to be social.
So we're thinking about like healthcare, poverty, crime. What were the 2 biggest issues at the beginning? Biggest global concerns at the beginning of 2020.
Ooh.
Okay, global concerns. Well, obviously.
Healthcare, famine, deforestation, crime, corruption.
So I think like the one of the biggest concerns of last year from a national perspective was the free school meals thing. Kids not being able to eat. We're a Western world. We're probably one of the richest countries in the world, but yet our children don't have enough food to eat. What is that? And I had to take Marcus Rashford, a 24-year-old kid footballer, to convince the government.
We thank him.
Absolutely. But that is what is going on.
And they were fighting and arguing with him all the way.
And then did they even admit that they were wrong? They're like, no, that was our idea.
That was our idea wrong.
Yeah, and when they did deliver, it was rice in a money bag, so it was,
Damn.
I can't top that answer.
We probably have to ask in second in future because she nails every time. Number 1 issue in the world was poverty and social inequality.
Okay,
so,
alright.
so that's the social inequality. So like Black Lives Matter, female empowerment, and poverty, people not getting school meals, all of that. Second one was so that was 34% poverty and social inequality. Second one was unemployment, 31%. And the third one was crime and political corruption, tied equally.
Right.
So, and 6 out of 10 people believe that their country was on the wrong track politically. They were doing things wrong. It did vary from location, but most countries felt that their country was on the wrong side of morality. So, which brings us on to, you have a restaurant in Clapham Common. Tragedy happened a few weeks ago. Actually, someone I went to university with in Durham, Sarah Everard, was killed by a policeman. Allegedly, but I'm going to say it was him. So this brings up a lot of discussions about, is it safe for women to walk alone? What it's like to be a woman? I've got a sister, so obviously you think about it, you're like, what's it like walking home late at night being a woman? And people are like, she shouldn't be walking home late at night. So what, you can't go, so it's ridiculous, you're not allowed to have headphones, all these different things. How do you feel as, I would say a shorter woman, but generally any female, because I feel like if I was a female, I would not.
Small in stature.
Small in stature, yeah. I'm 6'4", so I'm good everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm 6'4.5".
How much do you bench?
More than me. Yeah, how much you weigh? That's my warm up.
I've got a sister. I've grown up in London, and in Manchester it's really different up here because. When we were doing the NBA, I'd always tell my female friends, don't walk home alone, I'll walk in. They're like, no, it's fine, I do it all the time. But when you grow up in London, you know that it's not cool to walk home alone as a girl. So, that's what I think anyway. So I always pick up my sister from a friend's house or maybe get a taxi. So how does this all affect you as a woman, and how do you feel like it is living in that area, having a business in that area, and generally the whole issue? What do you think about it?
Yeah, so good question. So being a 5'1" woman, so it can, growing up, these things like you don't listen to your headphones, you always have your keys in your hand. That's just something that we're conditioned as women. Unfortunately, this is how we need to live our lives. You always look behind your shoulder. I know when I'm walking home late at night, like 1 a.m. from the restaurant, I'd never have my headphones in. I'd always look behind me. And if someone was behind me, I'd make sure I was on the phone. But it's that fight or flight. You're just culturally, you've just grown up with it, and you see how other people are interacting around you, and that's what you do. And it takes something like Sarah Everard for this tragic thing to happen, to highlight it, to highlight that this is the issue in society that's so ingrained. Again, sexism, how we treat women. You know, we are trying to fight for equality in other areas of society in the corporate world, but actually where it should begin is how we raise men, raise boys, you know. And that is I think that's the key, you know, education is the key, you know, being able to respect women when you're young, because you know how you condition boys, even don't play with pink is a girl's colour, that's sissy, you know, the language that you use, stop being a girl, you know, these are all, you know,
don't cry, you're a guy, you're not a girl, stop
men
crying.
don't cry,
men don't cry, that's such a
man up.
I think man up is the worst, because that's like universal. In Nigerian culture, it's definitely like, we don't say it, but men don't really cry. Like,
we live in a patriarchal system.
So it's like you're not really meant to cry. Like, obviously, someone dies, you go cry quietly. But apart from that, like, there's not really a reason for guys to be crying in our society. So it definitely is a problem that starts when you're being raised.
So I guess it's exactly like raising your children, but it's hard to fight society and what societal norms, right? But I guess if enough families have that conversation, then a society can change as a whole, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, is it hard to fight societal norms? I don't know.
Yes.
Well, you know,
yes,
it is, but there's examples. If you look at gay rights movement, you know, transgender movement, right? Mm-hmm. If you were having these conversations 20, 30 years ago, they just, you know, absolutely no way. Is there going to be societal shift in how we treat gay people or people that are, you know, transgender or are transitioning?
There has been already.
There has been, exactly. Yeah. So society is changing, and that is a great example of how it can change if enough people get behind it. And so in terms of male and female dynamic, that is something is more difficult, because it's more delicate of an issue and
it's so subtle.
Exactly. Even if you trace it back to religion and history, like even before, you know, I don't want to go too deep because it's
we go deep on different things.
No
topics untouched. Let's get it.
Well, if you look at ancient history, for example, like all of the great civilizations, like the Egyptians, like women were very much in power, they were very dominant. Exactly. Cleopatra and Nefertiti, you know, they were the trailblazers of their time, but that also trickled down into society where women were like empowered in society. They had power, they were seen as a figurehead of the family. And then you have traditional organized religion that comes into play, where Christianity, you know, I'm not here to diss Christianity, it's not the place, but you know, when you think about, you know, how Jesus, Mary's the Son of God, like where does she sit in all of this? How are we raising our kids and ourselves with religion and a woman's place in religion? You know, and that is something personally I have an issue with as well, because I think that's also where it starts from a cultural perspective.
It can, it definitely can, but I guess a lot of people, when you educate your kids on this, you tell them, you know, this is what happened biblically, or this is what happened historically, but I guess you can still tell them those stories, but give it a caveat of these were the times back then, this might not be the norm now.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because especially, for example, if you're looking at the Muslim religion, and then if you will die, you'll get a certain amount of virgins
40.
and go to heaven. You know the number. Yeah,
I'm educated, I read books, I don't know about
you. Shots fired. But yeah, it's like that alone, that's being taught today to children, that's what happens when you go to heaven. So, like, why isn't it you get 40 male virgins? It's always like a skew. So if you're saying that's how it used to be, you're telling them this is what happens.
There's a way of still presenting that, but still saying, you know, this were the times back then. Or you can still say...
You can't say you get 40 virgins, these are the times back then. Because it's objectifying women.
No, what I'm trying to say is saying, like, there's a way to respect history without saying that, you know, let's dismiss it completely.
Yeah.
There's a way of saying, this is how it was done, this is how people perceive it now, but this might not be the right way of absorbing that information kind of thing.
I think if you look at sexuality, like especially women's sexuality, it's very much owned by men. This whole 40 virgins in heaven. You know, the whole Adam and Eve story the whole notion of, oh, Eve, she's to blame for the fall of mankind.
It's
She
all
ate
her
the
fault.
apple. Pandora, it's her fault. She opened
Pandora's
the box.
opened
all
up,
of
everything
that.
went wrong.
Yeah, so it's all women's fault, right? Or how men, some men anyway, have written that story and that narrative. And especially when it comes to sexuality as well, it's even written in religious texts, like, the man owns the woman when you get married.
Cover her head.
Exactly. So.
It's all,
I think it's very systematic, and I'd like to think it would change in our lifetime, but unfortunately not.
I'm glad you said that because it reminded, the reason I brought up, well, so many reasons, but so many parallels with this time last year with Black Lives Matter. When things are subconscious a lot of the time, you don't even, it takes women to say, I have to walk around with my keys in my hands. Like, for guys, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I had, because I've got a sister, but a lot of guys were like, I never thought about having to keep it clean in your hands.
Yeah.
Or carry mace or dial, press this on your phone and it dials. I never worry about that. I just I'll mess you up or I'll call my boys. So it's not something to worry about. But then with the Black Lives Matter, it's the same thing. When I'm driving a car and I see police signs behind me, no matter if I'm in the street, whatever I'm doing, I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, be cool. Don't turn your heads on me. Turn down the music. And when my other friends will just turn it up and just be rocking, they don't care because it's subtle and it's ingrained and it's things you don't think. So when the guy walks past and the guy turns around, or the worst guys honking their horns, and anytime I see, I'm like, dude, what do you do, you dick? No guy is ever gonna be like, you honked at me, can I take my number? So it's like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
So certain things like that, it's just subconscious, and if you don't call out, it just gets worse. So if a kid sees his dad honk the horn at a woman, when he grows up, 9 out of 10 chances he's going to do the same thing. So I think a lot of it is just stuff that, and if you see
I guess that's what you've kind of called to attention now, is that this is now the time to bring education and attention to those little nuances that happen in society, and then it allows us to be able to have dialogue and educate people and say, these are the troubles that this demographic is going through. This is how we can hopefully address it for the future. So.
And my last point on this, just as an example, I put on my Instagram, there was the NCAA basketball college championship for women, for all basketball.
Oh yes.
Before you go to the NBA, they had a whole gym for the men, and it was just facility, everything you could ever want. It was like a paradise for us. We were like, so many weights, 3 basketball court size, and then the girls, they had 1 set of dumbbells. For all the girl
adult standards of
literally just six, I'm not even got 6 dumbbells, little ones that you hold like this.
To be shared amongst
all of the different girls competing. So obviously the girls complained, and then they said, oh, there wasn't enough space, and then the girls were like, there's so much space. The next day they brought loads of gym equipment for the girls. So it's but the thing is, so many people said, yeah, that's okay, just give them they only need a few weights, because it's oh yeah, he said it's cool, don't worry, they don't need much, they're girls, they're not going to lift. And it's that, but competing in professional basketball, they need weights, treadmills, pull-up, everything. So it's just it's subconscious little things, it's not always intentional, it's just the way people are programmed.
Perceived.
And the way they see, that girl said they need to work out. Just give them some dumbbells.
And that's the problem, that's what we need to change.
Yeah.
So, nice. All right, thank you very much for coming in to sit down with us and educate us on your journey, what you've kind of addressed along the way, and educating us on what it is to be a woman of BAME and also women in the industry. If you can now be able to speak out to the crowd, speak out to our listeners, to let them know of words of wisdom, what is it you would hope for them to be able to pick up from your mistakes and from your experience, and let them know.
Sure. So I would say to anybody that is looking to start a business or waiting for the right time to start, I would say just start, because that right time never comes and no one is ever ready. But ones that do start are the ones that actually make their dreams happen. And along the way, you will get a lot of resistance, whether that's from your friends or your family, whether it's even from yourself. But acknowledge that resistance is all part of the journey, and not to internalize that too much and think that there's something that you're doing wrong. I would also say, in terms of separating yourself from your business, you are not your business. If your business fails, that doesn't mean that you are a failure. It means that something's outside of your control. And the fact that you even had the courage to even go out there and make something a reality, you should be really proud of yourself for that. So all in all, start. Don't wait for the right time, accept that you'll have resistance, and have self-conviction.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. There's a lot of a lot of heart to that, and I really hope that people are able to get that conviction to go out and do it, and learn from their strengths and their weaknesses, and leverage what it is they have to bring to the table and put on a plate, pun intended. So actually, speaking of your business, how is it that some of us are able to reach out to you or the business, and where can they?
Sure. So please do follow Chit Chat Chai. That's chat with 2 A's. We're on Instagram, all the socials. Also Pink Tiger UK. So if you would like any Ayurvedic supplements, please drop me a message and we can send you out a discount code. And to anyone that's based in London, if you do fancy a Chit Chat Chai delivery or a dinner tonight or any other night, again, please do message us. Say Roots, Different Roots Radio in the message inbox, and we'll sort you out a code as well.
Love it, love it, love it. So you're going to be expecting a few DMs? Or a few...
My next week is sorted for food.
The whole next week?
The whole next week. I do not know how much I love Indian food.
He's built a loyalty like that. I like it. All right, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
We look forward to see what you bring to the table or bring on the plate.
And get me in the franchise model.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, sounds good.
Thanks a lot.
Right, thank you.
Peace.
Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Different Roots Radio on YouTube, Twitter, and other channels. Our talks air on Monday every fortnight. One love.
Peace.